Hello, good evening. I just wanted to talk a little bit about interpreting because I haven't actually talked about that for some time. Interpreting, of course, it's an action, it's an activity, it's communication. It's how you communicate between two people, between two entities, whether they are institution and an individual, or they are two individuals talking to each other. So when you are translating, when you are interpreting, you're not really interpreting words, or a language only, i.e., they are not only linguistic signs that you're using. You're using more than that. You're actually trying to make two people who don't know each other's language, language one, language two, they don't understand each other at all, and you are trying to facilitate the communication between them. So there will be interactivity going on. It's an act of interactivity between the two groups or the two sides that you are interpreting for. So if you are, when you are interpreting for them, you are not really just looking at the words, you are trying to actually see if the communication is going or not going. And it is your job to make sure that it is going, it is communicating. Now, what are the steps that you need to be aware of or you need to learn about interpreting? The first thing to do is to improve your listening skills. And I think this is one of the reasons why I think a good interpreter is a good listener, and also a good public speaker needs to be confident. So you don't need to be shy about what you are producing as an output. It's called output, what you are producing, which is like TT in translation. It's called output. And there's also the input. The input is what you are hearing, which is like the ST, if you like, in translation. So the input is coming through your ear, and you are listening to it, and you are trying to produce it. Now there is a very important item in interpreting, which is called ear to voice span. Span. Ear to voice span. And span means the stretch, okay? From the time you listen to something to the time you speak something. How long will it take? It depends on, of course, the mode of interpreting. You've got two modes. You've got consecutive, which means you are going to listen to the first party first, speaking, and everybody's quiet. Then once the first party finishes, you talk as an interpreter, saying what this person has said. And then once you finish speaking, the third party, which is the listening person or entity, is the one will be answering or replying to the idea that's been given by the first speaker. So that's how it's happening here. This is like taking it in turn. In other words, it's your turn when you are interpreting. It's the turn of the speaker, first speaker, and the turn of the second speaker as well. So you take it in turn, and that's called consecutive. Consecutive tends to be you are allowed to write notes, note-taking. And when you write notes, you write them downwards in order to make them easier for you to actually remember all the ideas that are being given. If they are too complicated, then you write them more and more. Of course, you write them as notes. The ideas will be written not horizontally, but vertically. And you split the page into two parts, and you write the ideas of the first party, if you like, speaker one. And then when you speak, you know which items that you need to cover. Of course, how many sentences they speak is up to you and them. You decide when to stop and when to start. You interpreting and they stop talking. So that is a matter of you arrange it with the parties. As for what kind of things that you need to be aware of, let's going back now to the interpreting. Now you need to be confident of the information that you are hearing. So you need to be a good listener. If you are not listening really well, then you won't be able to understand. Very important word, the word understand. You need to understand what you are listening to. So you need first to have a clear idea what's being said, words, like the word park or bark. Did the person say 16 or 60, for example? Did it say sugar or figure? So you need to know which ones. Did it say deaf or death? Okay? So you need to have a very sharp listening skills to be able to pick up all the words, all what's being said by the first party. And what you are trying to do here is to take the idea from the first party, not the words only, but you are actually focusing on what their concept is about. What are they trying to say? And usually the idea takes 1 or 2 sentences to cover an idea, or 3 sentences before you can actually explain your idea. So therefore, you don't have to worry about word for word translation here. You are just getting the idea, the sense, the meaning from the first party who are speaking, the speaker, and you're trying to understand it. So you listen to it, that's the ear. So you are listening to it. This is the input that comes in, which is the eye, usually well known. It goes into your head. And when you hear these things, you need to understand them. You need to comprehend what's being said, not only just as words, but also as an idea. What's the idea? You need to understand that idea. So you need to listen and comprehend at the same time on that part. And then you need to find words that are in the other language to speak them to the other party. And that is the outputting. That is the mouth. That's the voice. So that's what's called ear, voice, span, which is the stretch from the ear to when you speak, you're interpreting. Now, what is required here? It's not so different from translation in the sense of you are transferring ideas, senses, meanings, okay? That's what you are doing. I mean, it's not just to be grammatically beautiful, but it doesn't make sense. You don't understand the idea yourself. You need to understand the idea when you are actually interpreting. So that's really very very important. The other point, which is very important, is to prepare yourself before you do the interpreting, especially if you're going to a conference. You need to read newspapers, magazines about the topic. For example, if the topic is about business, you need to go and read about that topic in business. If it is about medical, you need to go and read about medical terminology and ideas, and about the speakers. What are they doing? Who are they? What have they published? This is what you do 2-3 days beforehand, preparing yourself for the session of interpreting. So you prepare the terminology, okay, and you become almost like a specialist. It's the same as when you are doing medical translation. In medical translation, you need to know the terminology in the medical field. Also, you need to know the concepts. You need to understand them to an extent because you are trying to understand this kind of professional area which you are not familiar with in the medical field. So, what is required from you as an interpreter is to be a good listener. I listen really carefully, very well, what's being said. And once I understand what is said, then I can speak. And then I can output. And my output consists of normal language, the English language, let's say, if you are outputting into English. It will be, now, when you are interpreting, the same as when you are translating a text. The text will have too many layers, quite a few layers in translation. The layers are, of course, you have one layer which is for the actual words on the page. There's also the knowledge behind these words, which you need to understand what they are as well. You need to understand what their concepts are, what they are trying to explain in the source text. The same is with interpreting. You look at what the ideas are, what are the concepts, and also what the terminology they are using. You need to use the same terminology so that you are becoming as if you are a member in that you have a membership in that community. If they are medical field, you are a member in that medical field in a way. You understand a little bit about it. So you need to understand what you are actually interpreting. So good listening, and then good pronunciation, good outputting. Some students need to improve their pronunciation. How do you do that? Well, you listen a lot. So in order to become a good interpreter, you need to listen to a lot of videos. You need to improve your listening skills, and when you're listening, you are in fact, you are improving your pronunciation without realizing that. And that's what I usually say for people who are trying to learn the language. If you want to learn how to speak a language, you need to listen a lot to that language. And if you want to write that in that language, you need to read a lot about that language, in that language. So I remember, for example, one of the guys who did not even know how to write, he did manage to know how to speak English, even though he doesn't write English. What he's done is he was focusing on his listening skills. And he was picking up all these units in groups, because when you speak, it's different. Unlike when you write, when you speak, you are actually speaking quite a few words together. And that's the difficulty of understanding somebody, because you need to find out what the word, they might say a word which you don't understand, but then they are saying it within a few words together as a group. So it's difficult to know what's that word, especially if it's a word you've never heard of. So you're trying to learn it. So this guy who doesn't, I'm giving you this example about this guy, he was actually repeating a whole sentence or a whole phrase in one go. And he knows that, for example, a reply to say, hello, how are you? He knows how are you, but he doesn't know how are you. He knows how are you together. So that is what speech is about here. And when you are interpreting, you are listening to a speech, to words that come together in a phrase or a clause. So therefore, it is important to get your ears, to train your ears to listening. And by the way, when you improve your listening skills, by definition, you will be improving your output, which is your pronunciation. So your English gets better in pronunciation. So you'll find all the interpreters, they speak really well English, or good English in a way, pronunciation-wise, because they have been actually listening to a lot of English. So what I would advise everybody who would like to be becoming good speakers of English is to listen to a lot of videos. Put headphones, of course. You need to use headphones. You can't just say, okay, I'm listening to this video or I'm seeing this film or whatever and I know, I understand. It's not enough. You need to have your headphones on. Because when you listen to the headphones give it very clear words being pronounced really clearly by the speaker. And of course, it depends on what speaker is. If he's Indian or is Pakistani or an Italian speaking English or a French or a German or a Canadian or New Zealander, each one is going to speak the same word in a different way, perhaps. Like, for example, in Scotland, maybe they might say E for apple, where they mean A for apple. So it's not actually very clear whether it's an A or an E in pronunciation. So you need to be good you need to improve your pronunciation, and that is very easy by listening to lots of videos. That's all. So each day, make it a job for yourself is to listen to videos, a lot of English videos, different speakers, same speaker, whichever speaker you want. You can choose any speaker, but so long as these videos have somebody who speaks like I am, talking head, like I am doing now. You need to have a video where somebody is looking at you or looking at the camera and talking. Because you need to watch them, you need to see their expressions, their facial expressions, their body language, because all of these together help you in understanding the ideas, help you in understanding what they're trying to say. So you focus on them. And I think that's the first and a good step towards being an excellent interpreter, by training yourself for the listening skills and for being understanding them as perfect as you can. So that's the first step, listening and understanding. And the second step is speaking. That doesn't come straight away. It will take time. Speaking requires you to listen a lot. Like a little baby, when they are born, they do not speak, they listen. They listen for a long time before they start speaking. And when they speak one word or a phrase. And sometimes they speak few phrases without realizing what they mean. Especially if there is a 3-year-old or 4-year-old speaking certain expressions, and you laugh at them. They don't know what the expression is because they heard it from an uncle or from an aunt, and they are just saying it because they like that music of the words, but they don't know what the words mean. And that's what what they are doing. They are trying to listen and improve their pronunciation. And that's when they become when their speaking skill starts to get better and better and better. So in interpreting, you have to improve your listening skills first, and improve your understanding of these words or what's being said. You don't have to stop at every single word. You need to get the idea, what they are trying to say. So don't stop at every single word you don't understand and say, oh, I don't understand anything. Just you have to assume that some words, you're not going to know all the words, but you need to get the idea what they are trying to say. That's my advice. Good luck.